Have you ever stopped to wonder what the first letter of your name might reveal? Not about your personality, but about your soul. Not your full name, not your background or biography. Just that one letter, the very first sound you've responded to since the earliest moments of your life. It might seem insignificant at first glance, just a letter, a product of tradition, preference, or chance. But what if that letter holds more than sound? What if it carries a spiritual imprint, a subtle code that reflects something essential about the core of who you are? Carl Jung, the pioneering Swiss psychologist, didn't believe in randomness. He believed in meaning, deep meaning. According to Jung, our lives are shaped not only by the conscious mind but by ancient archetypes, universal symbols embedded in the collective unconscious. These archetypes appear not just in dreams and myths, but also in the seemingly mundane symbols that surround us, like names. For Jung, symbols were not decorations. They were bridges to the soul, and the names we bear, especially the very first sound we hear and repeat, can reflect the energetic tone of our inner world. That first letter may function as a kind of whisper from your unconscious, a signpost pointing toward your deeper essence. Let's pause logic for a moment and imagine, what if the first letter of your name isn't just a sound, but a clue? A reflection of your emotional rhythm, your soul signature, or your deeper spiritual structure? Too abstract? Not necessarily. Carl Jung taught that the symbols in our lives are never random. They are invitations, bridges between the conscious and unconscious. Even the smallest symbol, like a single letter, can mirror hidden aspects of who we are. We may not be defined by our names, but we are certainly shaped by them, especially the first sound we hear when someone calls us. That letter becomes a kind of psychic anchor, repeated so often it embeds itself into our identity. It colors how others perceive us and how we see ourselves. What if that letter has been quietly tuning your emotional frequency all along? Jung might ask, what symbols shape your soul without your knowing? What hidden truths live inside the ordinary? This is where introspection begins, not in grand philosophies, but in quiet symbols. And that first letter? It may be a key to emotional depth, spiritual calling, or unconscious memory. In this journey, we'll explore each letter from A to Z, not as static shapes, but as archetypal energies. Each one carries a subtle resonance, a vibration your soul may have chosen to express long before you knew how to speak. And to be clear, this isn't about putting people into boxes. Jungian psychology is about awakening, not labeling. It's about uncovering what's already alive in you, silently shaping your path. So if you feel drawn to the symbolic, the soulful, the unseen, you're in the right place. This journey isn't just about hearing your name differently. It's about hearing your soul more clearly than ever. Now consider this. That first letter of your name? It may be the first verbal fingerprint your soul left in the world. It's how people call to you. It's the energy they feel before they even say the rest. It's what gets abbreviated, highlighted, remembered. And that first vibration might reveal more than you think. It might not define your soul, but it might describe how your soul moves, how it approaches others, navigates love, processes emotion, or guards its truth. Let's take a few examples, not as facts, but as archetypal echoes. A name beginning with A might resonate with beginnings, leadership, and the soul's desire to initiate paths rather than follow them. AB could carry tones of emotional nurturing, connection, and the soul's need for harmony. AD may signal structure, responsibility, and the soul's pursuit of grounded purpose. These aren't instructions. They aren't boxes. They're symbolic blueprints. Tones, not terms. Feelings, not facts. Jung's teachings make it clear the conscious personality you show the world is only a fraction of who you truly are. Beneath that mask, what Jung called the persona, there is a rich symbolic network that whispers through dreams, relationships, synchronicities, and yes, even the first letter of your name. When we bring those symbols to light, we don't limit ourselves. We illuminate the soul. And in doing so, we become more complete, more aware, more honest with the stories that have been living inside us all along. So what might your first letter be saying? Not about your job, not about your habits, but about your soul's style, its rhythm, its resonance, its silent truths. If you've been shaped by this sound your whole life, what story has your soul been telling through it, without words? In the sections that follow, we'll travel from A to Z, listening for deeper messages in each letter, not with logic, but with attention, with intuition, with soul. You don't need to believe in magic to enter this journey. You only need to be willing to pay attention to the symbol that's been with you since the beginning, the letter that may carry the tone of your soul. And it's been whispering to you every time someone calls your name. A, the initiator. If your name begins with the letter A, your soul may carry the sacred imprint of beginnings, the impulse to move forward when no path has yet been cleared. A is not just the first letter of the alphabet. It is the first to rise, the first to speak, the first to pierce silence with a voice. There is a primordial power in this letter, a sense of identity that does not wait to be granted. It declares itself. People whose names begin with A often express a soul energy that feels compelled to lead, even if they never sought to. It's not always about commanding others. Sometimes it's simply about being the one who dares, the one who steps into uncertainty when others are still waiting for a sign. Deep within, there's a spiritual restlessness, an awareness that something must begin, and a willingness to be the one to carry that responsibility. Whether it's starting a business, taking emotional initiative in a relationship, or carving a new belief system, these souls seem wired to take the first step. But like all archetypes, this energy carries a shadow. The same fire that ignites boldness can also burn too hot. The desire to act can become impatience. The urge to lead can become dominance. There may be moments when the need to be first to act, first to be right, first to succeed, disconnects them from the deeper rhythm of life. Carl Jung would remind us that this kind of soul energy must be integrated with awareness. The initiator is not just the one who acts. It is the one who understands the right moment to act. The mature A doesn't force movement. They inspire it. They don't lead through control, but through courage. And their gift is not just movement, but momentum. When balanced, people with A energy become living invitations for others to awaken. Their presence alone gives others permission to begin, not because they asked for attention, but because they showed what it means to follow your soul's first impulse, to become. B, the nurturer. If your name begins with the letter B, your soul may speak in the language of presence, tenderness, and containment. The letter B is soft, round. It bends inward. Unlike A, which rises up and pushes forward, B creates a shape that holds. It doesn't demand attention. It offers sanctuary. This is the soul that feels the world quietly and deeply. Often people with B names carry the energetic blueprint of the caregiver archetype, not in a superficial sense, but in a deeply emotional, spiritual way. These are the souls that make others feel safe. not through loud declarations, but through silent availability. Their power lies not in being seen, but in seeing others. The bee soul is often attuned to the emotional needs of those around them. They feel the shifts in a room. They notice when someone is hurting, even when no one else does. And they carry an instinct to soothe, to protect, to gather the scattered pieces and hold them together. But this kind of soul carries its own burden. The shadow of the nurturer is self-erasure. In giving endlessly, they may begin to lose track of where others end and they begin. They may silence their own voice in the name of peace. They may stay in roles, relationships, or responsibilities long after they've stopped nourishing them, simply because walking away would feel like abandonment. Jung would say that when we over-identify with an archetype, it begins to possess us. And bee souls are vulnerable to that kind of unconscious sacrifice. They may equate love with selflessness and stability with emotional silence. But the truth is, the nurturer must learn to nurture themselves first. Only then can their care become clean, whole, and healing. When this energy is integrated, bee becomes the sacred vessel. These are the people who quietly hold families together, who create emotional refuge for friends and lovers, who bring peace into the chaos, not by solving everything, but by being present with unwavering sincerity. They don't fix you. They feel you. They don't speak over your pain. They sit with it. And through their quiet soul, healing begins. C, the communicator. If your name begins with the letter C, your soul may carry the energy of expression, curiosity, and transformation through voice. The form of the letter itself is open, half-circle, as if always in the process of becoming something more. It bends. It turns. It doesn't stay rigid, and neither does the soul that carries it. The symbolic tone of C is movement through language. Not just words, but symbols, gestures, color, rhythm. These individuals are often storytellers of the soul, even if they don't write or speak for a living. They have a natural instinct to translate experience into meaning and meaning into expression. Jung might have linked this energy to the trickster or messenger archetype, a figure that transforms through insight, who uses wit, questions, and even humor to reveal deeper truths. People with this soul pattern are rarely still. They're mental explorers, constantly collecting ideas, stories, observations, trying to make sense of the world and share it with others. But the shadow of this archetype is avoidance through activity. The need to keep talking, moving, or entertaining can sometimes be a strategy to escape silence, and in silence lives discomfort. There may be fear of being misunderstood, or a deeper pain that hasn't yet been given space to speak. The growth of the sea soul comes from learning to pause, to allow words to rise not just from intellect, but from feeling. When this happens, their voice doesn't just entertain, it heals. It gives shape to the unspoken. It brings light to what others couldn't name. When balanced, the sea energy becomes a bridge. These are the ones who help others understand themselves, not by instructing, but by reflecting, by naming the subtle truths hiding behind smiles and silences. Their soul speaks the language of clarity, and when they speak with honesty, the world listens. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the SIM Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. D, the builder. If your name begins with the letter D, you carry the soul of a stabilizer, someone whose inner architecture is built for structure, order, and reliability. Just as the letter itself suggests a strong backbone and a protective curve, your energy offers both strength and shelter. D souls are often grounded and rooted in reality. They don't drift, they build. Whether it's a career, a relationship, a family, or a dream, they move step by step, respecting the process. Jung would associate this with the provider or architect archetype, the one who takes invisible ideas and turns them into something solid. But this groundedness has its cost. The shadow of D is rigidity. In a world that constantly changes, the desire for control can become a burden. They may resist uncertainty, clinging tightly to routines, roles, or expectations, even when those no longer serve their soul. These individuals may take pride in being dependable, but they must also ask, at what cost? Is their stability truly rooted in strength or in fear of falling apart? Because sometimes the soul grows not through control, but through surrender. When integrated, D becomes the quiet force that others rely on, not because they are loud, but because they are consistent. They hold things together. They endure. And in that endurance, they give others the courage to build something real. Their soul doesn't seek the spotlight. It seeks lasting purpose. And when they learn to balance discipline with flexibility, they become the pillars upon which great things are born. E, the seeker. If your name begins with E, your soul carries the vibration of the eternal student, the one who looks at the horizon and wonders, what else is out there? This is the energy of motion, of inquiry, of the spiritual explorer who is never quite satisfied with surface answers. The shape of the letter itself stretches in different directions, reaching outward. E doesn't settle. It craves stimulation, learning, novelty. But deeper than that, it yearns for meaning, a kind of inner expansion that mirrors its outer restlessness. These souls often carry a diverse inner world. They are curious, expressive, and drawn to a wide range of interests, from ideas to people, cultures, and philosophies. They want to understand how things work, how people think, how the soul evolves. Jung might describe this as the journey of individuation in motion, the soul's quest to discover itself through contrast, through experience, through asking better questions. But in this archetype lies a shadow too. The seeker may become scattered, addicted to movement, stimulation, or variety. There can be a fear of stillness, a belief that staying in one place, emotionally or spiritually, means stagnation. But the truth is, some of the most profound journeys happen inward. The E-soul must learn that wisdom is not just collected, it is distilled. That silence can be a teacher. That not every question needs an answer. Sometimes the lesson is in listening. When balanced, E becomes a force of transformation. These individuals light up rooms not because they're loud, but because they bring fresh perspective. They evolve quickly and invite others to do the same. Their soul doesn't seek repetition. It seeks revelation. And in that journey, they discover not just the world, but themselves. F, the harmonizer. If your name begins with the letter F, your soul likely vibrates with the energy of emotional equilibrium, inner grace, and intuitive elegance. The structure of the letter itself reflects a balance between upright strength and gentle openness, an architecture of beauty that holds firm, but never harsh. The F-soul feels the world in subtle frequencies. These individuals are often drawn to harmony, whether in relationships, environments, art, or emotion. They notice what's off balance before anyone else does, and they often feel called to correct it, not with force, but with finesse. Carl Jung might have seen this energy in the lover archetype, not limited to romantic love, but expanded to include deep emotional resonance with life itself. These souls are often natural mediators, diplomats, or artists. They bring people together. They soften conflict. They seek the middle path not out of indecision, but from a sincere desire to preserve peace. But the shadow of this archetype is the tendency to suppress one's own truth for the sake of others. F souls can become so attuned to others' needs that they forget their own. In their quest to maintain balance, they may avoid necessary confrontation. They may smile when they want to cry. They may say yes when every part of them wants to say no. This soul must remember, true harmony requires honesty. Not every moment can be smoothed. Not every conflict should be avoided. And sometimes, the most loving act is to speak your truth, even if it disrupts the peace temporarily. When conscious, the F energy becomes a force of quiet elegance. These are the souls who walk into a room and soften it. They don't demand attention. They attract it through presence, through empathy, through the courage to feel deeply without losing center. Their soul's gift is not just peace. It is the beauty of balance, grace without collapse, love without self-erasure. G, the guardian of inner worlds. If your name begins with G, your soul carries the signature of introspection, protection, and silent wisdom. The shape of the letter itself curves inward, like a spiral leading into the deeper chambers of the self. This is not the energy of the spotlight. It is the energy of sanctuary. These individuals often feel a strong pull toward the inner life. They observe more than they speak. They feel more than they reveal. Their soul seems to understand that truth is not always found in noise. It is discovered in stillness, in solitude, in the unspoken language of reflection. Jung may have aligned this with the hermit archetype, or even the wise elder. These are not reclusive souls in the negative sense. They are guardians of sacred space. They carry an inner clarity that doesn't shout, but when it speaks, others listen. But the shadow of this energy is emotional distance. In guarding their inner world, G-souls may become walled off. They may fear vulnerability, mistaking isolation for safety. They might take refuge in solitude so often that it becomes a prison rather than a retreat. The lesson here is one of discernment, to know when silence is healing and when it is avoidance, to allow others in without giving away the sanctuary entirely. Because the soul that begins with G is not meant to stay hidden. It is meant to share what it has discovered in the dark. When integrated, G becomes a guide, not loud, not flashy, but profoundly grounding. These are the people who can sit with another's pain without needing to fix it, who can hold space without needing to fill it, who speak only when there is something real to say. Their soul is a lantern, not meant to blind, but to illuminate the path home. H, the bridge between worlds. If your name begins with the letter H, your soul carries the vibration of connection, duality, and sacred integration. The structure of the letter itself is revealing. Two vertical lines held together by a crossbar. Two realms, two truths, two opposites, linked by something in the middle. This is the soul of a mediator, mystic, or translator between realms. H energy tends to operate between contrasts, logic and emotion, science and spirit, chaos and order. These individuals often feel a natural pull toward making things whole. They sense the disconnection in the world and instinctively try to bridge it. Carl Jung described this inner dynamic as the transcendent function, the psychic force that brings opposing elements into conscious harmony. People with H at the start of their name often feel this deeply. They may be the ones others come to for perspective. They feel both sides. They understand the language of the mind and the whisper of the heart. But this power comes with its own struggle. The shadow of H is indecision. In seeing so many perspectives, they may forget their own. in constantly holding space for others, they may neglect their center. There is also the temptation to avoid action, forever stuck in the tension of the middle. For the H soul, growth comes through choosing with clarity, not abandoning their gift of integration, but learning when to commit, to cross the bridge themselves, not just build it for others. When awakened, this soul becomes a sacred link. The H individual teaches others that truth doesn't always live in extremes. It lives in union, in synthesis, in the courage to hold contradictions and still move forward. They don't just connect people to each other. They connect spirit to matter, emotion to reason, shadow to light. Their soul is a portal, and through them, the fractured becomes whole. I, the witness. If your name begins with the letter I, your soul may carry the essence of pure observation, sacred individuality, and inner alignment. The form of the letter is a single, vertical line, unwavering, upright, centered. It does not lean. It does not bend. It simply stands. It is the only letter in the English language that also serves as a personal pronoun. I. That small letter becomes a vast concept. Identity, self-awareness, existence. For those who begin with I, the soul seems drawn to clarity. Not the loud kind, but the internal kind that comes from knowing who you are without having to prove it. Jung might have seen this as a variation of the self-archetype, the part of us that seeks inner coherence, not through approval or performance, but through authentic being. These individuals may feel a deep need to remain true to themselves, even if it means walking alone. They may be more attuned to seeing what is, rather than what others wish things to be. But the shadow of I is isolation. The clarity they possess can become a barrier. Others might misread their stillness as detachment, their silence as arrogance, when in truth they are simply cautious with their energy. The danger lies in standing so tall that they forget to reach out. The lesson of the I soul is to remember. Standing alone is powerful, but connection doesn't require betrayal of self. You can remain upright and still let someone take your hand. When balanced, the I soul becomes a beacon of integrity. They help others return to their inner compass. Their alignment is not just for them. It's an energetic permission for others to stand tall too. They don't speak to be heard. They speak when it matters. And when they do, it comes from the center of the soul. J, the initiator of joy and justice. If your name begins with J, your soul dances with the energy of upliftment, movement, and noble purpose. The letter itself curves in motion, a dip and rise, symbolizing not a straight path, but a journey, a fall, a learning, a return to light. This is the soul that doesn't just live, it leads, often energetic, expressive, and deeply motivated. J souls are the ones who stir the room. They bring momentum. They bring change. They bring hope. Jung might have seen this as the hero archetype, not in the ego-driven sense, but in the mythic sense. The one who takes risks on behalf of something bigger than themselves. These individuals are often drawn to justice, fairness, and truth. They carry both fire and heart, and they want to see the world reflect both. But the shadow of J is idealistic urgency. The desire to help can become pressure. The impulse to uplift can lead to burnout. They may try to carry everyone's burdens, forgetting that joy cannot be forced, and justice cannot be rushed. This soul must learn to pause, to breathe, to trust the process. To remember that even the most passionate warrior needs stillness to sharpen their sword. When integrated, J becomes a living light, a soul that teaches through presence. They remind us that joy is not childish, it is sacred rebellion, that justice isn't cold, it is love in motion. They fight for others not with anger, but with radiance, and their soul's fire warms more than it burns. K, the catalyst. If your name begins with the letter K, your soul carries the archetypal signature of truth-telling, change-making, and intentional disruption. The letter is strong and split, branching outward in both directions. It does not blend in. It challenges the space it enters. People with K energy are often unapologetically clear. They see through illusion with ease. They know when something is off, even if no one else is willing to say it. And unlike many, they're often willing to be the one who speaks up. Jung might associate this archetype with the rebel, the warrior, or the truth bringer. These individuals may feel emotionally charged by hypocrisy, stagnation, or injustice. Their soul seeks alignment through action, not chaos for chaos's sake, but disruption for the sake of growth. The shadow of K is abrasiveness. They may move too fast, speak too sharply, or forget that not all transformation must be painful. Their challenge is to marry clarity with compassion, to remember that awakening others is a gift, but one that must be offered, not imposed. When conscious, the K-soul becomes a sacred mirror. They reflect back what no one else wants to face, but with the intention of healing, not harming. They don't fear endings, because they understand the soul needs breakdowns to break through. They are not destroyers. They are initiators of truth. L, the listener, and the lover. If your name begins with L, your soul moves with the vibration of receptivity, emotional wisdom, and quiet intimacy. The form of the letter opens to the right, like an open hand, or an ear turned toward the world. It listens before it speaks. It welcomes before it judges. This is the soul of the empath, the healer, the sacred companion. People with L at the beginning of their name often carry a longing for connection, not superficial, but soul level. They don't just talk to people, they feel them. Jung may have seen this energy in the anima, the inner feminine principle that seeks unity, grace, and presence. These souls have a softness that isn't weakness, it's power. They hold space. They create safety. They often intuit what others can't express. But the shadow of this soul is self-abandonment. In loving others so deeply, they may forget themselves. In trying to keep the peace, they may silence their needs. They give so much, but often forget to receive. The lesson for the L soul is this: to love others is sacred, but to love yourself is essential. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that decide who gets to enter sacred space. When integrated, this energy becomes relational alchemy. These individuals don't just listen with their ears, they listen with their hearts. They don't just show up for others, they remind others how to show up for themselves. Their soul doesn't shout. It whispers where it matters most. And in that whisper, others finally hear themselves. M, the maker. If your name begins with the letter M, your soul may carry the frequency of creation, quiet endurance, and sacred responsibility. The letter itself climbs and dips, then climbs again, a rhythm of life itself, building, breaking, becoming. The maker's path is not linear. It is cyclical, like breath, like seasons, like the soul's own transformation. This is the soul of the creator, the one who shapes the world, not with noise, but with presence. People with M energy often have an instinct to nurture projects, people, spaces, and dreams. They may not announce their power, but it is always felt. They are the ones others turn to when something needs to be held, built, or sustained. Jung might have connected this archetype with both the mother and the creator, symbols of the one who gives form to the formless, who brings soul into matter. These individuals often carry a deep inner reservoir of strength, drawn not from ego, but from service. They are the quiet architects of meaning, but the shadow of M is emotional containment. In holding so much for others, they may forget their own needs. They may feel they must always be strong, always be reliable, always be fine, even when their soul longs for rest. The challenge of the M soul is to receive as much as they give, to know that their worth is not in how much they carry, but in how deeply they live. When integrated, this energy becomes the foundation on which others find their strength. M souls don't need to lead with words. Their presence is enough. Their actions speak. Their integrity echoes through what they create. They are not just builders. They are carriers of legacy. N, the navigator. If your name begins with the letter N, your soul is likely tuned to the energy of movement, awareness, and quiet adaptability. The letter itself curves downward and lifts upward, a graceful dip into experience and a return to direction. It does not resist change. It moves with it. This is the soul of the intuitive navigator, someone who doesn't demand the spotlight but always knows where to go. People with this vibration often have inner radar, a sense of timing, nuance, and subtle truth. They can shift perspectives, change direction, and move through uncertainty with a grace that others admire but can't quite explain. Jung might see this as aligned with the magician or seeker archetype, those who transform their surroundings not through force, but through insight. These souls learn through contrast. They trust their gut. They move when the moment calls, not before. But the shadow of N is restlessness. In adapting so easily, they may lose their grounding. They may shift so much to accommodate others that they forget where they stand. Their challenge is not to stop moving, but to move from the center of themselves. The lesson for the N soul is this: flexibility is a gift, but without inner alignment, it becomes fragmentation. The goal is not to bend endlessly, it's to bend with purpose. When balanced N becomes a guide through the unknown. They don't provide maps. They model trust. They teach that life isn't about control, it's about learning how to read the winds. Their soul doesn't chase clarity, it becomes it. O, the observer. If your name begins with the letter O, your soul may carry the quiet wisdom of wholeness, receptivity, and sacred stillness. The shape of the letter is a perfect circle, a symbol that has echoed through every ancient culture. It holds everything. It begins nowhere and ends nowhere. It simply is. This is the soul of the mystic, the contemplative one who watches deeply rather than rushes to act. People with O energy often seem calm, grounded, and introspective. They may not say much, but when they do, their words carry weight. They are mirrors, reflecting truth without distortion. Jung would likely associate this energy with the self archetype, the totality of the psyche, the center that integrates opposites and invites balance. These souls often feel connected to something greater, even if they never put it into words. They understand that meaning is not always spoken, it is felt. But the shadow of O is withdrawal. In seeking stillness, they may become distant. In valuing inner peace, they may disconnect from emotional risk. They may stay silent when their voice is needed. They may wait when their soul wants to step forward. The challenge is to open the circle, not to break it, but to share it. To realize that presence isn't the same as disappearance. That being whole doesn't mean being alone. When integrated, O becomes a living sanctuary. These souls teach us to slow down, to listen between words, to honor what's invisible. Their gift is not performance, it's presence. They don't seek to be understood. They seek to understand, and through that, they show others how to return to their center. P, the purpose-driven one. If your name begins with P, your soul may carry the energy of clarity, inner conviction, and spiritual direction. The letter stands upright, curving forward, like a figure that moves with intention. P does not drift. It acts with meaning. This is the soul of the visionary grounded in reality, the one who sees purpose not as a distant idea, but as a living compass. These individuals often possess a strong sense of duty, not imposed from outside, but emerging from within. Their lives tend to orbit around a mission, a belief, or a value they hold sacred. Jung would associate this with the servant leader or visionary archetype, someone who acts not from ego, but from alignment with something deeper. They aren't always loud, but when they move, it's with precision. And their presence reminds others that discipline and depth can coexist. But the shadow of P is rigidity. In their devotion to purpose, they may resist change. They may cling to plans long after they've stopped serving. The challenge is to allow the soul's purpose to evolve, to trust that direction can shift without betrayal. When conscious, P becomes a living compass. These individuals don't just speak of values, they embody them. Their soul teaches that the most powerful actions are those aligned with inner truth. They don't chase power. They move with purpose. Q, the questioner. If your name begins with Q, your soul may carry the energy of mystery, paradox, and sacred disruption. The letter is a circle, wholeness, interrupted by a diagonal slash. It is a symbol that says, everything is not what it seems. This is the soul of the deep inquirer, the one who doesn't accept easy answers. Q people question assumptions, challenge appearances, and expose hidden truths. Jung would associate this energy with the shadow walker or philosopher rebel, those who dive into the unknown, not to destroy, but to uncover. People with this energy often feel like outsiders, but their insight is essential. They may see flaws in systems, cracks in narratives, contradictions in culture, and they feel compelled to ask the questions no one else will. The shadow of Q is cynicism or chronic doubt. In always questioning, they may struggle to trust, even themselves. They may fear surrendering to anything they can't fully explain. But not all truth is logical, and not all knowing is certain. When integrated, Q becomes a midwife for awakening. These souls help others confront blind spots, gently, precisely, powerfully. They don't offer answers. They offer better questions. And sometimes that's all the soul needs to begin remembering. R, the resonator. If your name begins with R, your soul may vibrate with the force of emotional depth, creative expression, and spiritual passion. The letter curves and drops with momentum, like a heart that rises in love and falls into grief. It is the symbol of felt experience. R is the soul of the empathic warrior, the one who doesn't just think or speak, but feels with intensity. These individuals may express themselves through music, art, movement, or deep dialogue. They awaken feeling in others because they are tuned to emotion themselves. Jung would link this to the artist or the wounded healer archetype, the soul that knows suffering and alchemizes it into something meaningful. Their presence is catalytic. They don't just resonate, they reverberate. But the shadow of R is emotional overwhelm. They may get caught in storms of feeling, pulled into highs and lows without rest. Their challenge is to anchor, to express without exploding, to feel without drowning. When conscious, our energy becomes creative fire. These are the souls that remind others what it means to be alive, fully, fiercely, vulnerably. Their soul is a song you don't forget. S, the shapeshifter. If your name begins with S, your soul may embody adaptability, emotional fluidity, and intuitive grace. The letter curves like a serpent or river, flowing, flexible, never fixed. This is the soul of the transformer, one who moves through spaces, emotions, and roles with uncanny awareness. These individuals often read the room without effort. They change tone, shift posture, adjust language, not to manipulate, but to harmonize. Jung might call this the shapeshifter or guide archetype, the one who helps others move through change because they themselves understand how to bend without breaking. The shadow of S is loss of self. In adapting to others, they may forget their own center. They may blur boundaries or feel invisible. Their task is to hold flexibility without erasing identity. When integrated, S becomes an emotional healer. These souls walk into chaos and bring cohesion. They don't force change. They become it. They teach that transformation isn't about force. It's about flow. T, the torchbearer. If your name begins with T, your soul may carry the energy of truth, leadership, and sacred duty. The letter is a cross, grounded, upright, symmetrical. It symbolizes both burden and blessing. This is the soul of the guardian, the one who protects standards, upholds clarity, and leads not for ego, but for principle. People with T energy are often beacons in their communities. Those others trust to do the right thing, even when it's hard. Jung might associate this with the wise ruler or mentor archetype, the figure who brings order to chaos without suppressing individuality. These souls feel responsible not just for themselves, but for the integrity of the space they occupy. But the shadow of T is rigidity. In holding truth tightly, they may become inflexible. They may resist new ideas, fearing that change equals betrayal. Their growth lies in realizing that truth is not a wall, it is a bridge. When awakened, T energy becomes guiding light. These are the people who live by example. They don't speak perfection, they embody sincerity. U, the vessel. If your name begins with U, your soul likely resonates with receptivity, stillness, and spiritual presence. The letter opens upward, like a chalice. It holds, it waits, it invites in. This is the archetype of the healer or sacred container, someone who knows how to be there. People with U energy don't need to impress. Their presence is enough. They create energetic safety simply by existing. Jung might see this as aligned with the priest, priestess, or self-archetype, the one who reflects wholeness and radiates calm. But the shadow of U is emptiness. In always holding space for others, they may forget to nourish themselves. They may feel depleted or unseen. The lesson is to remember, a vessel must be filled to overflow. It must be honored, not only used. When integrated, U energy becomes sacred space, a quiet field where others feel seen, heard, and healed. These souls teach through silence, through presence, through being whole. V, the visionary. If your name begins with V, your soul may carry the sharp clarity of focus, insight, and intentional movement. The letter forms a sharp point, descending, then rising. It is the symbol of discernment cutting through noise. This is the soul of the seer or strategist, someone who often knows where things are going long before others catch on. These individuals are efficient, but not cold, rational, yet intuitive. They hold long vision and act with surgical precision. Jung might associate this with the insightful warrior, the one who leads not by domination, but by inner clarity. The shadow of V is rigid expectation. When their vision is interrupted, they may resist surrender. They may push too hard, forgetting that clarity is often born in stillness. When balanced, V becomes a focused beam of truth, guiding others toward what matters. Their soul doesn't wander. It moves directly toward the essential. Blaise the weaver. If your name begins with W, your soul likely holds the energy of integration, interconnection, and sacred patterning. The letter rises and falls twice. It reflects duality, complexity, the soul that lives in multiple worlds at once. This is the archetype of the alchemist or the soul weaver, one who brings disparate things into harmony. These individuals often juggle many roles, ideas, or identities, and they find meaning not in simplicity, but in sacred complexity. Jung would see this as the energy of the psychic integrator, the one who makes opposites whole, but the shadow is overwhelm. In holding so many threads, W souls may become tangled or exhausted. The task is to weave, not carry. To remember that synthesis doesn't require sacrifice. When conscious W becomes a living tapestry, a soul that teaches others how to honor paradox and live in wholeness. X, the crossroads. If your name begins with X, your soul embodies the rare archetype of the threshold keeper, sacred disruptor, and gate of choice. The letter is a literal crossing point, a meeting of paths, a place of tension, a place of potential. This is the energy of spiritual initiation. Jung might associate X with the moment of transformation, when the known dissolves and the new is not yet born. X souls often hold roles of transition. They trigger change in others. They ask the hard questions. They may even dismantle illusions so something new can grow. But the shadow of X is rootlessness. In living always at the edge, they may forget to rest, to land, to simply be. Their task is to become the bridge, not just the crossroad, to walk both worlds and return whole. When integrated, X becomes sacred permission for others to evolve. Y, the seeker of meaning. If your name begins with Y, your soul is wired for inquiry, depth, and existential truth. The letter splits into two paths, left and right, representing divergence, duality, and the choice between illusion and authenticity. This is the archetype of the philosopher or spiritual seeker. These individuals ask the big questions early in life, and often wrestle with them forever. Jung would say this is the individuating soul, the one whose journey is inward toward truth, rather than outward toward approval. But the shadow is spiritual fatigue. The desire for meaning can become a burden. They may never feel satisfied or seen. The lesson is this: the question is the path. Meaning isn't always found in answers. It's found in the courage to keep asking. Z, the finisher. If your name begins with Z, your soul may carry the energy of closure, wisdom, and transformation. Z is the final letter, the end of the line. But it's not an ending. It's a return to the beginning, evolved. This is the soul of the sage, the teacher, or the guide who finishes the cycle. Z souls often carry ancient insight. They know what others deny, that life moves in spirals and endings are sacred beginnings. Jung would align this with the alchemist or crone docked wise elder archetype, those who distill experience into light. But the shadow is detachment. Seeing too far ahead, they may forget to be present. They may rush endings or skip over emotion. Their lesson is to feel the ending fully, not to escape it. When they do, they become initiators of rebirth. Their energy is the last breath before the next life begins. And maybe, just maybe, the first letter of your name wasn't chosen by chance, but by something deeper within you, whispering who you've always been, long before the world gave you words to explain it.